So good morning, I'm Commissioner Brad Holton. I'm going to give you a little bit of narrative before we start the official hearing and continue it. Turn these wonderful things off. They are a smartphone, they're not a wise phone, and they don't know when to be quiet. This is a continuance of a public hearing. This doesn't happen very often, so I'm going to take a moment to acclimate yourself with that. Was anybody here this morning that was not here yesterday? I'm only talking to 1, 2, 3 people. Okay. So if you want to talk, you needed to sign up if you want to testify. If you don't want to testify, just watch and listen. It's a public hearing, you're welcome. That's fine. So we've already gone through the people that are in favor. We've gone through the neutral. We're currently going through the people that are opposed. And so you get 3 minutes to come up and speak your piece and address the commission. When we've gone through all of that, there will be a rebuttal time for the applicant. And then there might be some questions and procedures, and then we would go into discussions about trying to make a decision. God forbid that we don't get done in the next 3.5 hours. We would have a continuance, and that would be for Monday at 2:30. But Lord willing, we might be able to get it done today. But I'm not going to predict. There's a lot of things that could happen in the next 3.5 hours that I'm not going to say whether we would or we wouldn't. You'll all get to wait and see like me. So with that, is there any questions procedurally? Yes?
If we talked yesterday, if we wanted to add a thought, are we allowed to do that?
No. Okay. No. I try to be fair with everybody. That would be unfair to everybody that spoke. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Great. I'll get in my seat and we'll fly this plane.
And real quick, remember speaking to the mic, because everybody needs to hear what everybody's saying.
You realize you said that without
I
speaking.
just that's why.
Good morning, I'm Chairman Brad Bolton. President is Commissioner Brooks. Commissioner Van Beek has recused herself. We are continuing the hearing on Appeal CU 2022-0034-APL. This is a continuance from yesterday, as I've already stated, and we still have quite a few names that signed up to testify. Before we get started, we have 2 new names that are wanting to testify. So Monica, would you take this time to swear them in?
Janet Prater and Andy Williams. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? So help you God. What's that?
I had signed to testify today also.
Tamara Franz, you sure did. I'm sorry. Tamara Franz, do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? So help you God.
All right. Commissioner Brooks, do you have any thoughts or any
No, Mr. Chairman.
word-wise of wisdoms? Okay, all right. So with that, let's start. Janet Snyder? Kreider? All right. You come forward. You need to pull the microphone in so you can speak right to the mic.
I don't think I'm gonna have that problem.
We'll see. All
We'll
right.
see.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
there's somebody that spoke
Should we
yesterday.
begin with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Okay, point of orders.
Okay,
Good.
that's apparently what she was talking about.
Okay.
Her question was the flag.
Okay. You all right?
I'm okay.
Okay. All right. Let's take the moment and do a pledge of allegiance, please. Thank you for the request. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, my name is Janet Kreider. I live at 4885 Edison Road in Marsing. Today I'm going to speak personally only because I am in my late 60s. And to me, the process of elimination of who gets to know what is happening is very important. Our emergency services, our police department, all of them need to be available to us residents in Marsing. If this takes place, I will lose that, and needing those services would be very important to me. I also, the importance of notifying the residents of what is taking place. No one in Marsing was notified of this taking place. I live just across the river, and that is going to affect me greatly. I moved here for that reason, to where we're living. The small town, like what I grew up in, I moved here from Oregon 13 years ago. I live in Marsing for the last 10 of those. It has been the best place I've ever lived. It's beautiful. I would like to keep it the same. Thank you very much for your time.
Jennifer Krem.
Hello, it's Jennifer Crum.
Krem, thank you.
Sorry.
No worries, my fault.
Nope, that's okay. I want to thank you for your time, and I'm just going to read you a little statement here. We would like to state for the record, on behalf of the Sunnyslope Community Coalition, which has 64 members and counting, we object to Senator Blakey, formerly District 12, now representing District 23, acting as counsel on behalf of the applicant. This is a potential conflict of interest and potential ethics violation. Our team will be submitting an official records request for all forms of official records pertaining to this hearing as we pursue counsel from a higher authority. Additionally, when Senator Blakey submitted the application and performed additional actions on behalf of his client, we feel there may have been undue influence on our public servants to process the applicant's incomplete application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mindy Williams. Or is it Mandy Williams?
Randy, it's me.
Thank you. We're not scary, so it's all good.
My name is Mandy Williams, and my address is 312 West Cherry Avenue. I'm going to be building a home, hopefully, on my mom's property, 22004 Hoskins Road, and that's why I'd like to speak about this today. One of the reasons that my mom is breaking a piece of that property off for me is because we're tired of living in town. I grew up on that piece of property. It's one of the most beautiful pieces of property, and we overlook the valley, the river. It's beautiful. We've got horses, dogs, four-wheeler trails, all the things you can imagine. I just can't imagine that staying the same if this project was to be approved. It wouldn't be the quiet, beautiful valley that we know and love anymore. The traffic would increase. The infrastructure needed I think would need to be improved. And I understand there was a traffic study done yesterday, and in addition to that, I would ask that you see Exhibit 9, Attachment 2. And I thank you again for your time, gentlemen and ladies, and hope you have a great day.
Tamara Franz.
Gentlemen, thank you, and if I,
Pull the mic down so it's right in here.
okay,
There you
if
go.
I repeat anything, I was here yesterday, but I had to leave to get back to work. I got a little time off this morning, so if I repeat, let me know.
All right.
I'm sure you will. One of my concerns is the construction that's going on between Karcher and Pear Lane started in 2013, looking at it. And it was a study that began to look at the mobility, the safety, and the capacity out to 2045. We all know in the time between now and then, things have changed greatly, unprecedented growth. My concern is that by the time this gets built out, construction starting hopefully spring of 24, next spring, that road is going to be under construction for quite some time. When that road's under construction, the other alternative, most likely, is going to be Farmway. Farmway already has its own problems. Canyon County and the city of Caldwell, or Canyon Highway District 4 and the city of Caldwell are also already working together to try to get a roundabout at the worst intersection with the most fatalities, which is Houston. They are looking at, in the master plan in the future, at Homedale. For right now, that's there. Increased capacity on both of those roads during construction will be a nightmare. Another concern I have is that with the unprecedented growth that we have now, with the plans that took from 2013 to now to get funding, to get right of way, to get the plans, the designs approved, it's going to be outdated by the time it's put in place. The addition of this capacity on a regular basis on this road is really going to push it over the edge, is my concern. There's also a section that is going to be approximately a little over 4 miles that goes from Farmway to Pear Lane. That hasn't even, the plans haven't even begun yet. So you'll have 5 lanes coming one way, 4 lanes coming the other way. They're going to go down to 2 lanes for about 5 miles. The alternate route that where the venues changed is to come across Chicken Dinner. I have personally witnessed many horrible accidents at Chicken Dinner and 55. Life flight's been included multiple times. The people are coming out of Chicken Dinner. There's going to be all those lanes going down to the single section of road. People are going to try and shoot the gap. They're going to try and get out there to even get on there because they're so backed up. And I just see more accidents, potentially. That's on that one. The other concern I have is what is this going to do to property taxes in the area? A lot of the people in that area are on limited incomes or have been there for quite some time. They have stated that this is going to bring in, it's going to be a very large, very impressive venue, lots of property taxes to the county and such. What's that going to do to the people that already live there? What's that going to do to their property taxes? Is it going to make it to where their property taxes are going to go to a place that they can no longer live there? That's a real concern for me. My last is right behind the venue, there is a right behind the venue, there is a canal. There's always people that don't want to pay to get into the concert, so they're going to be sitting on the canal, trying to be in the orchards. They're going to party up there. They're going to leave their trash up there. Who takes care of that? And that's going to be an impact to the people who live directly around there also. So those are my thoughts and my comments. Thank you very much for.
Thank you. Laura Jean Raspins.
Good morning, Commissioners Fulton, Brooks, Terry. I'm reading on behalf of Laura Jean Rispens. She lives at 5859 Whispering Hills Drive, Marcy, Idaho. And she gave her testimony, written testimony yesterday, but asked me to provide some comments. I'll try not to be redundant as it pertains to traffic, but she has a specific point that she'd like to make.
They can't hear in the back.
Apologies.
Yeah,
Let
speak
me
right into the
speak
mic.
with my Quote, she said, "We would like to relay that the traffic study did not factor in potential customers pulling empty livestock trailers or vehicles pulling livestock trailers through the route. This type of trailer represents the character of Sunnyslope area as well as Idaho and other event centers such as the Idaho Center and a parking for these type of vehicles. It's not considered in her mind a recreational vehicle, it's a business related." Says, "I share the same concerns with others that they've expressed regarding increased traffic along Highway 55 from Karcher to 84 interchange to Sunnyslope. I own and ride horses. My husband and I have 2 rigs we use to haul our horses weekly from Marsing down Highway 55 to Interstate 84. One's a 36-foot 3-horse living quarter trailer and one is a 12.5 3-horse bumper pull. Over the past 8 years, we've been hauling horses down 55. We've seen a significant increase in traffic, but more alarming is the potentially dangerous situation we face every time we drive between Pear and the north side of Sunnyslope to the interstate. As mentioned on your own Canyon County website, crashes along this stretch are 11 times higher than average and tend to be more severe. The 4 locations where the road extends to 2 lanes for a traffic signal, then returns to a 1-lane road when traveling in the same direction. It happens at Indiana Lake, Midway, and Middleton. This is getting into her personal experience, and there's pictures attached. This last Saturday, we were driving eastbound on Highway 55 through the lake intersection behind a delivery truck. To pass a rig in the delivery truck, and Nissan Altima accelerated in the right-hand lane, but soon realized he didn't have enough space to pass us both, so it forced us to slow down so he could merge between us and the delivery truck. At the next light, he sped past the delivery truck on the right-hand side. This behavior happens all too frequently. Adding 2,500 more cars on the road to attend events at the proposed amphitheater would only serve to increase the stoplight racing behavior. I love everything about Farm to Fork, We Pick Orchard, and Cidery. What I don't support is this amphitheater. I believe it is too large a venue for this quaint rural community." She said, "Thank you for your time and consideration." The pictures depict around 3,500 8-foot bed, 36 overall length, including the living quarters, and the bumper pool 35-foot with 8-foot bed and the 12.5 3-horse bumper. Thank you for your time.
Chris Crickham?
Oh, excuse me. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Chris Crookham. I work at 301 Warehouse Street and at the corner of Chicken Dinner and Darrell Road, Caldwell, Idaho. I live in Boise, so I travel Highway 55 multiple times a week from May to November, so I'm very familiar with this route. My background is in legal investigation. I used to work with Avery Miller downtown, and then I got into video production. And most of my clients in video production are the major corporations in Idaho, and then some out of state, including Paul Mitchell. I'm also specialized in employee communications and public relations. So that's my kind of full background, what I do. Overall, I'm opposed to this large venue as it's not agritourism, it's the entertainment industry. And I agree with Mr. Jenkins from the city of Caldwell in his letter of clarification saying he welcomes the venue inside the city of Caldwell. I would be the first to stand in line if it was within city limits where it can be supported to, I think both would thrive in that location. I'm here today for a couple of things. The first is to reference the TIS report. I went through this and there's a couple of items that stood out to me. I did a records request with Idaho Transportation Department for the route. And the number one thing that stood out to me in this is the incremental operational analysis. This goes from 2019 to 2045. Each of the graphs with this, and I will give this to you, indicates that there's major intersections along Highway 55 that will continually, through 2045, as improvements are made, as they widen to a 5-lane road, will still be problematic. This study does not include adding 1,005 to 2,000 cars. So I don't think that the traffic TIS supplied by the client is accurate in its analysis. The second question I have on the TIS with that the developer submitted is that it only addresses the 4 to 5 p.m. travel window. And most people are working at that time. So if they're going to go to a concert, they're going to go after work. The TIS does state that people will arrive randomly and they will arrive after that 4 to 5 p.m. window, but they don't provide analysis in the report at all. The 45 window is found on 104 pages and referenced 154 times. And then the 5 to 6 p.m. rush hour is only referenced on 3 pages. Also, the 45 window was supplied by the client based upon past venues, but that does not give us the travel time they're talking about from these past venues, when the concert started. So it begins with insufficient analysis. So I actually don't think it should have been published in the first place. So that deals with the TIS report where I think it's inaccurate. The last thing I want to end on is my family's been here since.
That's time. Sorry, our clock's not.
Oh, okay.
Was it a very short thought or was it a whole narrative?
20 seconds, I'll watch that clock.
All right. Go for it.
My family's been here for over 100 years. We've been farming for over 100 years. Our friends and family, I grew up with the Sims, the Lodges, the Wheatses. These are families that are dear to my heart. I was on the Ada County Zoning Commission, and when we put in agritourism zoning ordinances, we made it so that it's an intimate, limited amount of people that will not be trespassing on other people's farms. And we did this so that neighbors would get along, that good neighbors make good fences. And I want to be able to be good neighbors with my childhood friends. Testifying up here is very, very difficult for me because I feel very close to these families. But I also do know they're very creative, they're very innovative, and I would be the first to stand behind another project. Thank you.
Oh boy, David, D-E-L, and then I can't read the rest, I-H, and then it might be a physician, I don't know, from the signature.
Delahunt?
It could be. Is there David Delahunt?
No, I think it's.
Okay, well, you marked both testify and not testify, so it was a 50-50 chance. Judy Leathers.
Hello. I'm summarizing a few studies and articles on hearing damage and would like them entered as late evidence. Here's a chart.
You can add them to the staff.
Should I hang on to it for a minute?
If you need it for your speak, go ahead and keep it, and then you can hand it in afterwards. Yes, that works. And be sure you speak into the mic.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Ma'am, would you state your name and address for the record, please?
I'm Judy Leathers, 20520 Great Plain, Caldwell.
Okay, thank you.
Frequency can be bad or it can be good. It's all about hertz and decibels. Decibel measures the intensity or loudness of the sound, while hertz measures the frequency or pitch sound. 432 hertz is the miracle tone of nature. The standard hertz was raised to 440 because it was known that it would cause illness. Concert attendants choose this damage. Those of us who oppose this permit do not choose to damage our health. Many are seniors, some are veterans suffering from PTSD, and working families with children who do not need their lives disrupted for a big corporation to make money. This is a quote, "And noise in fact can act as a non-specific biological stressor that is able to elicit reactions that prepare the body for flight or fight. Loud noise, not unlike animals, can cause other health problems like high blood pressure, faster heart rate, upset stomach, problems sleeping even after the noise stops, and problems with how babies develop before birth." So you can see that noise does more than cause hearing loss. It can impact your health, work, learning, and social life. It is important to cut down on all noise in your life for all these reasons, says American Speech. We do not want to wear hearing protection or have to stay inside our homes to be safe. According to Ear Pros, 70 to 90 decibels can cause damage, but 120 is profound hearing loss. However, you will see in one of these studies that some concerts are 139 decibels. The length of time you hear the noise increases loss. I have a few articles of complaints from coast to coast and north to south about citizens who have been harmed by amphitheaters. I want to enter these as late evidence. One amphitheater was told to move their facility, another may have to do the same. I can't understand why the commission would approve something that the majority objects to and experience the results doing this. This constitutional republic is supposed to be by the people, of the people, and for the people. It says nothing about corporations. Here are petitions signed by 402 people whose lives would be damaged if the commissioners grant this applicant's desire. I beg you not to take the liberty from your fellow citizens. I'm grateful to stand united with neighbors I did not know previously. I now have some strong patriotic people in my life who care about their neighbors. I live one block northwest of this proposed amphitheater. I am totally opposed to having my neighbors and myself subjected to self-indulgence of this corporate overreach. The people of the United States have been put through hell for too many years. Probably everyone in this room is grieving for family members and friends. We do not need more grief in our lives. I believe it has been made clear that the will of the people is
That's
what
time.
life. I had Maureen Morris this time too.
That's declared, you can't do that.
She declared yesterday.
How would you like to do?
I only have a sentence left.
You have a sentence left
Yeah.
to finish your thought.
We do not need more grief in our lives. I believe it has been made clear that the will of the people is that what life and the Constitution is all about. Please hear the majority of the public who are saying no to this horrible intrusion on our quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Be sure and hand your stuff in. Larry Craig
He wasn't able to make it.
was not able. Alan Mowry, is he here? Roger Young, 14465,
He was hoping to make it back. His wife had a dentist appointment this morning.
so he might be here later.
Yeah.
All right. Dan Hibbert. There's a Robert, I can't even read the rest of it, on 608 Ashley Way. Is he here? Okay. Terry McLennan. McKellen? McClellan. Thank you.
I live on 12241 Chicken Dinner Road.
Get really close to the mic.
Really close,
Really.
like I'm gonna eat it.
Good apple.
I live less than 1/4 of a mile from this event. I've lived on my property for, well, early 80s. My concern is the noise. I've lived there, I've raised children, a grandson, foster children, but I've rehabilitated ducks, wild geese, and they returned. And like what Mr. Dunlap was saying, sorry, I get upset. The noise affects them greatly. And I've seen them where they'll fly up and any little noise, they fly and they en masse hit each other. And I'm worried about this noise. And I've watched the Canadian geese and the snow geese fly over my property heading to the lake. And I know how this will affect this noise. And I've been to concerts, so I know how they up the noise. And so the noise is a great concern for me. And on a very, very personal level, I have a seizure disorder, and noise affects it too. And like the dogs, I avoid the fireworks. So when the fireworks are on and my dog hides, I hide in the house too. So I don't want to have to be affected by the sound of this noise from this place, because it'll affect me greatly too. And another thing people haven't brought up either is our property values will plummet because of this. And I'm worried about that too. I never planned to sell, but what about the people that live around me who want to sell their places? Their places will be valueless because, is that a word? Valueless?
It is today.
It is today.
Testimonies.
Their places will be valueless. So I want you to consider the fact of the noise and how that affects us and what it brings into our lives, because our lives are important and we value our lives. I value, because I can't wear earplugs because it's the waves that affect me, not the loudness, it's the waves from the waves. So,
Okay.
I could say a lot more, but I shouldn't. Thank you.
Thank you. James Hensley. Has anybody entered the room that wished to speak, that signed up that I haven't called? State your name. Are you in opposition or for?
Opposition.
And you signed?
I did.
Okay, come on up and state your name. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Mark Dalen. I live at 109.
No worries.
Put that back in there.
And this, yeah, use the.
109 Twilight Trail in Marcy. I was late this morning, about 5 or 6 minutes. There was a pretty terrible accident on Simplot this morning, and my prayers go out to the people that were in that accident, because it looked horrific. It was very, very bad, and I hope they survived. I'm not going to talk about traffic, but I'm going to ask you for a little extra time being a developer. 2 minutes would be cool.
You care? All right.
Why not? Okay, so in my opinion, folks, what this boils down to is simple. It's very simple. I see everything in black and white. It's not what, it's where. And you learn a lot by listening in life. And yesterday I listened a lot, took a lot of notes, and I noticed a lot of people that were for this idea of an amphitheater near our tiny town of Marsing of 1,500 people didn't live anywhere near there. So it won't affect them. So in my opinion, their opinions don't count. It's the people that live there. The location of such development is a driver, a 7-iron, and a pitching wedge away from Marsing. We will be the most affected, period. It's not fair to the people of Marsing whatsoever. It's this quiet little sleepy town. We enjoy our quiet sunsets every night, and that would be taken away from us forever. And in my opinion, that's not a good idea. I think as a developer, a lot of things have to be considered when you do a development. And consideration is the number one thing. And in my opinion, there have been, it's obvious that they didn't consider the town of Marsing whatsoever. A lot of these people that have spoken yesterday and today, I've come to the conclusion that there was nearly any consideration at all for the people who are actually there. Marsing is a mile away from this site. The city of Caldwell is 12 miles away from the site. So they're all for it because it's not in their front yard. It'd be like putting an amusement park next to the biggest church in town. It'd be a dumb idea, like a screen door on a submarine. It's great for Mars, it's great for Caldwell. Maybe fiscally, but then again, maybe not. And I say that because it's no surprise, no secret here, that the worst crime in the Treasure Valley is from Caldwell, the city of Caldwell. That's a fact, and I have plenty of articles to bring it up. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about where I'm from. I live on a ranch in Marsing. I'm 62 years old. I grew up on a horse ranch in the foothills of California. I developed land in Los Gatos. Such developers are multi-millionaires from tech. Multi-millionaires. They could buy every one of us out tomorrow in a blink of an eye. I personally have developed land in Los Gatos. I built custom homes there, pretty good sized ones with a few partners in that project. I'm self-employed since 19. Got my contractor's license at 19. I worked in the fields, I picked walnuts, I worked in dry yards. I'm a country boy. California is a different animal than Idaho, folks. California's a place where drugs are legal, where child trafficking is a misdemeanor, not a felony. It's a disaster. It's a complete disaster what's going on there. And people are fleeing there, just like them. But the location that they have selected for this project couldn't be worse. I had a discussion with the realtor yesterday in the lobby, and we were talking, and I said, what would you think if they put this in your backyard? He goes, well, they can't because I live in the city. And that said it all to me. That means everything. They don't care because they're from the city like these folks. I have a company there 41 years ago I started. We specialize in museum quality painting. I do all the biggest homes in Silicon Valley for the CEOs, the VPs of Apple, Google, and forever. So I have a lot of contacts there, and I also have some experience there visiting this mountain winery for concerts. And I'm going to be very, very clear that the picture painted yesterday was all cupcakes and rainbows. And that is not completely true. In addition, I'd like to have a statement struck from the record made by this young man right here. He came out and claimed that their venue was top 10 in the nation. And the truth is, it's ranked 13th in California.
That's time.
So that's 5 minutes, so just wrap that thought up.
Okay. Anyway, I want that, I would like that struck from the record. That's
not possible.
It's not possible, okay. Well, I just wanted to make the point.
All right, point taken.
Thank you for your consideration. You know, we're farmers.
Thank you. Yeah. Is there Alicia Brooks? All right.
I'm just the assistant. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Alicia Brooks. My home address is 410 East Willow Creek Drive in Middleton. My business address is, and second home, is 14253 Frost Road in Caldwell. I am one of the owners with my dad and the manager at Kindred Vineyards. So what I've written today is, I started with a quote: "A society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they shall never sit." I'm opposed to this development, not because it will hurt my business, not because it will affect my backyard, but because I see a future and a vision for Sunnyslope, which will be appreciated in 100 years. As a business owner, I've been blessed to meet many of our neighbors and local patrons. The concern of these residents have been vehemently expressed to me. As someone who has lived both in Montana and California, I have witnessed the contrast of greedy versus steward. We are meant to be the latter. This opposition for me does not come only from a business standpoint, but also as a concern for many people I have listened to and their concerns for their families, land, and quality of life. The developers have no motivation to alter their plan. They will not be affected by traffic, lights, lack of safety, and resources. However, the community of residents that have lived here for generations will feel the effects of this development on a daily basis. Idaho recently won the majority of medals in a regional competition between Montana, Washington, Oregon, BC, and Idaho. Our wine region is growing over 30% every year. We have over a century of experience in winemaking just in Sunnyslope. I've heard from a few that we only have two options: build a 5,000 person amphitheater or bury Sunnyslope under houses. But what about our third option? What if we continue this momentum that Sunnyslope has had and turn it into a world-renowned region? We can have cideries, you-pick orchards, small shops, and hundreds of acres of vineyard. Thank you.
So this is the last call. Is there anyone in the room that signed up to speak that I have not called? Is there anyone who showed up and hasn't signed in who wishes to speak? Okay. Commissioner Brooks, I think we're at the point for the rebuttal. Or do you have any comments or questions to proceed forward?
Not yet, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So we'll give this time period for the applicant for rebuttal, and I think that they need more than 10 minutes. Do you concur?
I concur.
All right, so would 20 be a reasonable goal? Would 20 be a reasonable goal? Thank you.
I think we'll need less, but thank you. Again, Deborah Nelson for the applicant. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'll try to tick through items by topic to try to address the extent of testimony we've heard. Starting with a few things we heard this morning with a notice. Notice of the application was provided in accordance with county requirements. The notice radius that was used was 1,000 feet. Also, the site has been posted, and so I think that's how the site posting is probably what's captured a lot of notice for folks traveling to Marsing. There was an allegation about Mr. Lakey's representation of the applicant. Mr. Lakey is bound by, and I believe, to follow all ethical standards, the professional responsibility rules that govern lawyers. And I also, there was also an allegation that the county improperly processed the application simply on the basis of his involvement. I also have full confidence in the county for exercising all appropriate ethical standards in their review and following their own rules and guidelines for processing this standard, for processing this application. Turning to water and wastewater, there was a number of comments about this. We are not drilling new wells. We will be using the SIMS existing public water system. The SIMS are state licensed operators of that system. The fire suppression pressure levels will be determined during design and will have to be approved by the fire marshal as part of any building permit application. Based on questions from the chairman, we can accept a condition of approval that we will enter into agreements to secure water and wastewater to meet project needs before obtaining a building permit. There's some comments about event safety. The applicant has private security on staff, both in uniforms and in plain clothes. This is very important to them to have a safe and welcoming environment at the venue. No drinking is allowed in parking lots. They encourage a family-friendly atmosphere, and families are typical attendees of these events. We can accept a condition of approval to end alcohol sales an hour prior to closing as requested in testimony. Many people testified that they are supportive of the cidery use and want to make sure that it will occur. Applicant is very committed to this use, as are the SIMS who will supply the product. As was requested in testimony, the applicant is agreeable to a condition of approval requiring the cidery to open contemporaneously with the music operations. A number of comments about sound. Sound system design is very sophisticated these days. Sound can be directed to minimize travel to the sides. The system can use more speakers to provide sound in a directed pattern rather than relying on fewer sources that have to broadcast more widely. Building design is also critical to shield and direct sound. The stage is oriented to face away from the closest neighbors to the south. The extensive SIMS property on 3 sides also creates a significant buffer. But the real control here is conditions 12 and 13 that limit sound to 85 decibels at the property and require continuous measurement. Sound is controlled with governors to automatically trigger reductions at the soundboard. So these conditions put the burden on the applicant to design the layout, the sound system, and all the barriers that are needed to meet those controlling standards. Consistent with your conditional use permit criteria, the property line is the appropriate place to measure to ensure compatibility with other properties. whether it is to protect two-legged or four-legged or feathered creatures. A few people commented about parking and raised concerns about guest parking on streets. There is sufficient parking on site to accommodate the guests. The applicant also works to prevent off-site parking through event staff. Condition 19 requires all parking to be on site. And the applicant is in agreement with the request during testimony to work with CHD4 to install no parking signs on Lowell Road. A few people commented about increased littering in the area. The applicant actively works to address this by taking trash from people as they exit the venue and walk to their cars, and by sending out crews every morning after events to find and collect trash that may have been tossed in the area. Condition 7 also requires applicants to maintain a hotline posted on their website so that any facility-related issues can be registered and addressed quickly. Turning to traffic. Some comments this morning about the scope of the TIS and how that was directed. That is directed by the transportation agencies. ITD and CHD4, and usually Compass as part of that consultation, directs the scope of traffic studies for any project. They also have their own requirements that have to be followed as those traffic studies are prepared. Then they review them, they provide comments back, and those studies are updated to reflect all of their comments. ITD directed the peak hours and days to be evaluated for this facility. That is in the record in an email on April 21st, 2022 from Regan Hansen.
Can you give me the date on that?
I can. April 21st, 2022. Can you just check the date in there? Make sure I've got the right year. April 21st, 2022, Regan Hansen at ITD.
Thank you.
And that's in attachment 9, the exhibit as well.
I vaguely remember.
Yes, thank you. Tara Bailey, who is representing the opponent group, pointed to the June 7th CHD4 letter from Craig Boardman. CHD4 submitted the same comments in a prior letter dated January 24th. No new comments were included in CHD4's June 7th letter. Applicant's traffic engineer responded to each of CHD4's comments in a February 15th memo to CHD4 and incorporated the new items into the updated traffic study. The January 24th CHD4 letter and February 15th memo I've handed to staff. I couldn't find them in the record, so I just wanted to make sure they were there. ITD completed their review of the traffic impact study and also directed further updates that were needed, resulting in the April 28th updated traffic study. Based on this final study, ITD identified the mitigations required for the project. CHD4 responded to ITD's letter to say that they are in agreement with ITD's required mitigations. These mitigations are incorporated into conditions 15, 16, 17, and 18. An applicant is in full agreement. ITD approved the scope and the conclusions in the final traffic study, which found that Highway 55 has sufficient capacity for the use. And as has been discussed, ITD does have plans to expand this section of Highway 55 in the future. But even as a 2-lane highway, the peak volumes are within existing capacities. This is not to say that there is no traffic impact. We recognize that departing trips, though one direction and short in duration compared to daily traffic patterns, still do put a lot of cars on the road in one interval. The conditions from ITD and CHD4 help to address this by requiring temporary barricades to direct departing trips to Highway 55 and off of local roads. And the applicant helps to control this by carefully controlling the outflow to limit the numbers of cars that exit the gate on the property at a time, to create gaps and to prevent cars from stacking up at the next intersection. The crew is very skilled at this and uses radios to be in constant communication to slow that outflow as needed. Emergency services. So several individuals testified about inadequate staffing at the sheriff's office. But based on this year's budget hearings, as reported in the Idaho Press just last month, an article that I provided for the record, quote, "For the first time in decades, the department is fully staffed with both patrol and jail deputies, with just 2 positions remaining in the jail. The sheriff's budget this year," end quote. The sheriff's budget this year also proposed to add 4 new patrol deputies to keep up with population growth. The sheriff's comment letter in this application did not raise concerns about staffing or serving the site, but instead was focused on transportation. And the applicant values law enforcement and emergency services and their concerns about that. In addition to the traffic mitigations and traffic study conclusions that I've already mentioned, Condition 19C also requires the applicant to work with ITD, CHD4, the county sheriff's department, and appropriate emergency service departments to create and approve an appropriate traffic management plan for events before the use can commence. This plan has to be reviewed and approved annually. This gives agencies the chance to provide input on applicants' outflow operations, temporary barricade plans, and other strategies for keeping the road safe and minimizing delays for other users on the road, especially emergency services. Condition 31 also requires the applicant to incorporate the Canyon County Ambulance District's conditions of approval to ensure trained medical professionals are on site to assist with medical needs. On-site EMTs can handle nearly all circumstances. It is rare to need transport to a hospital. In the event that is needed, Canyon County Ambulance District serves the property, and applicant will work with them in advance of events as they've requested. Private ambulance service is also an option if that becomes necessary. Turning to character of the area. As a conditionally allowed use under your zoning code, and a use that the Planning and Zoning Commission and your staff have found meets your comprehensive plan goals and policies, under your code and plan, this use is consistent with the character of the area. The conditions of approval mitigate impacts on surrounding properties, further protecting that area. This project has received significant support from the surrounding agricultural community and businesses who believe this venue provides a necessary opportunity for agricultural properties to diversify and to attract customers to support their operations that increasingly are depending on tourists. And of course, there are, obviously from the record you have before you and the testimony, there are detractors as well. Their testimony has been primarily focused on traffic and sound, and the required mitigations and conditions are responsive to these issues. We've also heard concerns about property tax. Today we heard someone concerned that it will go too high and another person concerned that it will drop too low. The Sims and other supporters are trying to maintain what they have here, trying to keep that agricultural base steady. For any significant project, there's going to be different points of view. But there does seem to be general alignment on the desire to protect agricultural opportunities in the area and to limit crowded residential growth. The Sims are trying to do exactly that. They're trying to find a way to support theirs and other agricultural operations through direct retail sales and by attracting a customer base for their other operations. We know that you've heard a lot of testimony and you have many things to consider. But please keep in mind too, the proper scope of what is before you. This is private property where the property owner is requesting to pursue a conditionally allowed use in the zone where the property is located in compliance with your code and your comprehensive plan. The P&Z did not have the benefit of the final transportation decision or mitigations that have been required or the conditions of approval that are responsive to testimony to address key issues related to sound, traffic, and emergency services. Your planning staff has carefully reviewed this entire record and found that as conditioned, Sunnyslope Ranch does comply with CUP criteria as described in their proposed findings. We ask you to approve those findings with the conditions of approval, and we thank you for your consideration and welcome any questions for the applicant team. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted you both to know that I did consult with our attorneys, so the preference would be that you handle the late exhibits while public testimony is still open, and close that. Questions of staff can be either before or after you close the public testimony as you have clarification questions on the application record or code.
Okay. So now we'll consider any late exhibits. Does any member of the board have any objections to any of the late exhibits before we enter them into the record?
Mr. Chairman, I don't necessarily have any objections. My concern is with the volume of exhibits that have been presented, unless we want to show up Monday, we have no realistic expectation that we are going to be able to review those exhibits. I'm not exactly sure what we do with that.
My suggestion is that we take them and make them part of the public record, but they're going to not be a part of our deliberation. It puts that at an undue advantage to bring in the late exhibits, and the P&Z didn't have that. The people that came to talk were not prepared with PowerPoints, and I can only imagine what time period that was taken, and we're getting 3-minute blips at a time. I think that is completely outdated information. I think that it is public record. They handed it in during the public hearing, so it will be part and parcel of the public hearing, but not part of our deliberation. That's what I would.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the late exhibits as part of the public record, but in that knowing that we will not be using them as part of our deliberation in this decision making.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Clarification, just for the record, that Exhibit 11 is the presentation by staff, which is also was posted yesterday on the website. Exhibit 12A through
12.1 through 12.15.
12 subsection 1 through 12.15 are the public comments that were exhibited. So if you would just consider adding that to the record so it can be referenced.
Commissioner Brooks, would you be willing to modify your motion to include those, basically as part of what the staff gave to us in the public testimony?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So let that be noted that that is part of the motion. All right, I don't have any discussion about that. I would second the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right, so let the record show that those have been dealt with. I would now accept a motion to close public testimony.
So moved.
Okay. I would second that. All those in favor to close public testimony, vote aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right, so public testimony is hereby closed. So those that are in the audience, this is the part that we enjoy about having a public meeting. The public part is that you get to sit here and listen to us. You don't get to get any kind of an exchange. So, so now it is going to be a part of the deliberation of the information that we received. So we'll begin the deliberations. Deliberations by the board should be based on the staff report, testimony, and exhibits we have received today, including findings, conclusions, and order, and conditions of approval, if applicable, or denial, prepared by staff. Does the board have any changes it would like to make to the recommendation? So I think that we will start in a deliberation time to do that. Do you have any suggestions of how you would like to do that?
No clue.
Okay, all right.
Maybe I have a question to start with for legal.
Sure.
This is 070705 hearing criteria, subsection 4. Immediate vicinity, essential character of the area. So my question is, do those, it seems pretty vague to me. So do those include vicinity and areas not in the jurisdiction of this board? But if we were standing out there, reasonably would be considered vicinity and area.
Chairman, Commissioner Brooks. It is on, okay.
There you
go. That question, I think you're correct, Commissioner Brooks, in your interpretation that it is not defined explicitly in the code. And I believe that was intentional in the drafting of that code, so that that determination could be made on a fact-specific basis, depending on the particular case that's before the board. And so that area that you're considering, the immediate vicinity, plain language meaning of those words, could that potentially mean impact on another city or county or other area that's immediate? Yes, absolutely. That's broad enough to encompass that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This is for probably Director Minchall or staff. Correct me if I'm wrong. Typically, when an application comes in front of us, we have, I guess, residentially wise, we already know what the water and wastewater treatment plan is going to be. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner, generally that is correct. However, there are cases where even after the approval from a land use agency, DEQ or Department of Water Resources does have to approve the actual system and make sure operationally it works. Because typically they don't do that until there actually is an approval case in front of them. So what we usually see, whether it's residential, commercial, and use, is some conditions, if approved, that would lead to, like what's proposed here, that DEQ and Department of Water Resources have to approve that and have proof of that approval and give it to us. There was in the staff report, we addressed that after our county engineer called DEQ. So when it's residential and it's one, it's a lot simpler because it's more standard. In this case, because you're talking about something that's a little different, especially a larger system using adjacent property, really they're the experts that have to ensure that that works. So as proposed in your conditions, if you decide to approve this, would be something that illustrates that they've been complete approval, and that has to be proved to us before they can proceed to the next step.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't know who to address this question to. Legal, staff, anybody that has an answer. Are there any rules, regulations, laws governing the development of scenic byway?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'll take a stab and provide color commentary from the other side. Scenic byways are typically designated by the state Department of Commerce and can or may not be adopted by the local land use jurisdiction. While there aren't any rules, there generally are guidelines in terms of what that does in terms of signage or use. But it's not really a regulatory function of the state. It's really more of a guidance in terms of the tourism side of it.
Chairman, Commissioner Brooks, the Canyon County Comprehensive Plan does include some language about the consideration of those scenic byways, and I believe that's still in the 2022 Comprehensive Plan. The county as a whole, though, has never adopted any formal scenic byway regulations, and so there is no formal guidelines or zoning requirements on those, but the existence of the scenic byway could be considered in your application of the comprehensive plan or in your consideration of the vicinity and its character.
Thank you.
Would you like to take major segments of the discussion and work through that, or would you like to narrow it back down to the 3 points that PNC declined for, and see if the applicant was able to make a persuasive argument against the decision of the planning zone?
Michelle, could you switch to this, back to the slide that had the PNC findings, so they can focus on those, so everybody can see it.
Michelle, I'm using page 6, there you go, yeah. But 33 on that one. That works.
We can start there, or we can Just run through them one through eight.
Okay.
I'm open to either one, Mr. Chairman.
I think for this commissioner, the issue is that the applicant, in my mind, has to be able to demonstrate with clarity to me and have that win out in my consideration compared to the information that I received during the public hearing. And so I think that the number 4 will the proposed the interest of other property in the immediate vicinity and or negatively change the essential character of the area. And so to me, it's going to be landing upon our shoulders what we consider the immediate vicinity. And since the venue is going to draw patrons from far away that are going to travel on I-84, and that was given in testimony, the immediate vicinity is not just the property any longer, it's impacting a significant area. So in my mind's eye, the immediate vicinity has grown bigger than the parcel. And will it negatively change the essential character of the area? Area also is an undefined, and so it is also perhaps more significant than just the parcel of ground that's on the Sunnyslope area. So I think that for the record, I want to make note that my discussion, my thinking is bigger than the parcel. I think that needs to be stated and to be fair in that. This property owner has property rights as well as the adjacent properties that are here near him or adjacent or in the area. So we're going to have to figure out how to balance their request to some of the other public input that I received. So, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so obviously I was alluding to that with my question about immediate vicinity in the area. So I do agree with you that, and I hadn't thought of it, but as far as the area expanding to where people are coming from, obviously Highway 55 and all the roads that are going to be impacted, which kind of takes in criteria number 7 as well. But the burden of persuasion is upon the applicant. And reading through P&Z's comments in the deliberation between the P&Z commissioners, I can't find anything that I've been presented with or that I've heard this far to persuade me to not only go against what they said in the P&Z hearing, but against my own research over the last week and reading this massive document. I have pages and pages of notes here that we can discuss, but as far as being persuaded to being whether or not this is going to be not injurious to other property in the immediate vicinity or the character of the area, I have not been persuaded that it will not be injurious. So I would not be able to agree with criteria 4 in saying that it would be okay.
Okay. One of the modes that the venue must pervade through is sound. Otherwise, the function of the proposal is without basis. I have enough past experience in contract work to know that the sound measurements, although they were real and they were measured, do not rise to the level that would need for this commissioner to be persuaded. I know in open air venues, sound and the pressure waves act completely different after sundown. It has to do with a lot of physical factors that doesn't need to be part and parcel of this testimony. But for this commissioner to be persuaded, I would need to have the audio test that is done on the basis of what the actual conditions would be. And that would be sound levels at 85 dB with peaks that don't exist longer than 60 seconds. I have enough engineering in my being to understand how that is a lot of wiggle room that this commissioner would not want to be a neighbor to that venue. I don't know how, I don't have any recommendations for the applicant how to make a different measurement that I would be, that I would entertain as measurable and comfortable to make a decision on, other than my suggestion is that those sound measurements be made after sundown and probably be done for a full hour from 10 o'clock in the evening to 11 o'clock in the evening, and see how the neighbors or the area, quote unquote, is receptive to that. I do agree that it's important to make the measurement on their property line. I think that was wise, and that was a measurable and a repeatable thing that you could do for sound. But we have more than one submittal that talks about being physically on top of Lizard Butte and being down below somewhere on the base, and you can literally carry on a conversation. I've experienced that in geographical structures like this, and I'm concerned about the megaphone issue that a slope could cause with sound. I was very curious to listen to anybody seeing anything about St. Chappelle, and it was alluded to several times, but it didn't seem to be a part and parcel of this community's angst or acceptance or anything. It was just basically not alluded to, other than the size and the much smaller number of events. So that was an interesting thing that I was trying to listen for in the public testimony, and it wasn't as big a thing as I thought it might be. They did mention about how those smaller events do impact the essential character of the area when they had those. And it's my understanding they still have them. I am in conflict with this county's granting of CUPs on properties that are immediately adjacent to this property. And I use the word immediately adjacent. I'll say, to correct myself, in the immediate vicinity that have been given sound limiting conditions on their property. And yet this application is considering something that would be completely blow those out of the norm. So I'm in conflict as a commissioner to consider this application in light of previous CUPs that have much more restrictive conditions on those properties. I find that a paradox that I can't connect the dots to with this application being considered for something far greater. So boards before us have considered the audio and have come to a conclusion of much more restricted conditions. And I have to wrestle with that. Thoughts? I'm not trying to be persuasive, I'm just trying to get issue. This is really uncomfortable. You process out in the open. I think Carrie out there has a clue. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm listening and I'm rereading through, in particular, P&Z Commissioner Sheets' comments, and it may seem like a cop-out, but he's exactly where I am. Bottom line, this comes down to, for me, in this criteria, the venue itself, the amphitheater. We heard multiple testimony about, especially from the neutral crowd, how they want to be supportive. Most people were supportive of, I can't find it, but basically everything but the venue itself, the amphitheater. And I think if that was not included, this is probably a tiny little meeting over in our normal space, and we're not even here today because of it. So in saying that, like the sound, but I think 4 and 7 are definitely interlinked in this particular application for me, as far as traffic and negatively affecting the essential character of the area, especially when we have portions of the road that aren't even projected right now to be funded to be widened. We heard that a couple of times in the testimony. I've lived here my entire life. I still get caught thinking it's going to take me the amount of time to get somewhere that it took me in 1998, and that tends to bite me. And I'm not opposed to the growth or anything, but this area has been consistently known for approving things when road infrastructure was not ready for what just got approved. So I see no way to argue out number 7 either, undue interference with existing or future traffic patterns with the venue that's being proposed in this application.
So let's take them one at a time. So number 4, would you be comfortable with the statement that we find that the proposed appears to be injurious to other properties in the immediate vicinity, and it does appear to have the potential to negatively change the essential character of the area?
I concur.
Okay. All right. Will there be undue interference with existing traffic or future traffic patterns? I find that I find that this commissioner is greatly frustrated with the traffic studies. Within our own documentation, there was an unbiased study that was done in 2019, and they determined what the background normal traffic was. And they found that the high peak was between 5 and 6 o'clock. I've heard testimony that the ITD gives all the criteria to a traffic study. My engineers here, do you have an opinion whether that is a factual statement or is that an interpretation? I'm curious because it is this commissioner's understanding that when an applicant contracts for a traffic study, they contract with whoever firm they choose, and they set whatever they want to set as the study period and the date they study. And that is not mandated in specificity from ITD. That's my question, is it?
Mr. Chairman, I think it might have to be deflected back to the applicant, but the way I understand it is the applicant their engineer will work with ITD to come up with these standards that the study will evaluate.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, this clarification, putting on my world transportation planner hat. Both are true. The applicant does propose the general scope. There are hours that they want related to the general area. However, it does require concurrence with ITD. That's part of why, as the applicant stated, you see kind of a progression in Exhibit 9,
Right.
where there was an original traffic study done. There were some questions both from Canyon Highway District 4 and ITD as well as ourselves in regards to, for example, there was some background traffic that was used from pending applications that were not, one, through the process, and two, have later been withdrawn. So there were some revisions to that scope that were collaborative in terms of removing those. There was also some provisions in terms of what hours they looked at for this process, in terms of they looked at 4 to 5 and 9 to 10 versus typically, as you're aware, but also for the record, generally the projections and what's in the operational analysis, which is Exhibit 7, is related to peak hour, which is really about, it's usually PM peak that's done on, which is more about commuter traffic. So it's a little bit apples and oranges.
Okay.
There was also some considerations that you saw in the updated traffic impact analysis to clarify that this is talking about 60 to 70 events and the amount of people. That is why, as you saw in our discussion on our presentation, the impacts were adjusted from original letters because of the time. So just to clarify, that is a collaborative process.
Okay.
There also was, later in the process, some differences in original comments between Canyon 4 and ITD. So our staff had picked up on that, asked for the clarification, and that's why you see an email in Exhibit 9, the third part, or clarification from Canyon Highway District that they concurred with ITD. So really, in summary, there's multiple players in that. The applicant does start that process, and yes, they can consult with whoever they desire. But it does have to be approved along the way in the mitigation responses.
Okay.
As you indicated, though, when a land use agency is looking at that, you're not only looking at the TIS, you're also looking at the types of things like the operational analysis, when are improvements planned, those types of things. So you have a broader scope than just your TIS.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that clarification. There's a couple documents that really concern me related to number 7, and I guess I have to take exception to the applicant's rebuttal. She said that the sheriff's department was perfectly fine with it, but the closing sentence says that they cannot support the amount of traffic based on the current roadway design of the 2 lanes from South 10th Avenue Farmway to Hoskins Road. And I think that the traffic, unfortunately for this applicant, is their main state highway feeder to the venue. And in no way am I telling the applicant that they are responsible to go out there and make that State Highway 55 a 4 or a 5 lane highway from Farmway to Hoskins. I'm not insinuating that. What I'm insinuating is that we've even had the emergency services, the Caldwell Rural Fire, which is responsible for the accidents that are in that area, stating that they are not going to be able to support that increased traffic. I guess what I'm saying is, great idea, but a little bit too soon before the infrastructure is there to be able to safely support the venue. And this commissioner would be very uncomfortable with making an approval on a major highway arterial that is already saturated. And I was frustrated at their traffic brief study because it was 4 to 5 and said that the venue would typically not open until 5:30. I don't see anybody showing up to do You Pick Apples in April. They're not going to sit in their cars. They're going to get there pretty close, like all people do, as close to the open time as you can. So that brings it into 5:30, which is 5 was the magic high volume count on the 2019 study. So I see a major arterial getting further clogged. I see our sheriff and our fire advising the commission just recently on the second review for this appeal that they use the words cannot. That strikes the fear of God into me. But I'm the guy who makes the decision that has the potential of having. It's not my fault that somebody's going to be stupid and has the accident, and they're going to literally bleed out because we can't get emergency services in. Unfortunately, I'm a private pilot. I fly at night. I see these major arterials clogged. I see the emergency vehicles with their blinky little lights clear over here, trying to circumvent the clogged traffic to just get to the accident scene. And I fear that we would be setting up the same scenario on State Highway 55. And I'm sorry that it sounds prejudicial to the applicant, but I have to consider that. The undue interference with existing traffic, what a broad definition. I don't even think I'm going to encumber Zach on that one. But I think I'm smart enough to understand what undue interference is. And in this commissioner's interpretation of undue interference, if I have a choice and it's a flippant choice whether to do it or not do it, that probably rises to the level of undue interference. If I had to get grandma to the hospital, I'm going to do it, right? But if I just want to choose to have an event and super saturate the highways, that's causing an impact on my traffic. And until we can deal with that in a reasonable way, I think that we have a great possibility that might be well before its time.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, one of the things that I appreciated someone bringing up in testimony was the fireworks that Marsing holds every year. You can, because of the nature of Sunnyslope being above the city of Marsing, it's a excellent spot to view fireworks. And with that being said, a lot of people go out there to watch. I think if we asked people if they wanted 60 or 70 July 3rd, July 4th events with the city of Marsing, the people that have to deal with that would be adamantly opposed. Now, they didn't come here and testify with that. Somebody brought up the actual parking and I guess the nature of going home from that event. It takes a long time for those people to clear out. When I go to watch, I'm on the Owyhee County side, up high enough that I can see all the traffic lined up along Sunnyslope, up Lowell, like people park everywhere. And that's one thing I appreciated too. They're willing to park everywhere for fireworks, they'll park anywhere for these events. I appreciate the applicant in their rebuttal saying that they would use staff to limit or prohibit that, but there's just too much ground for that. And then to add in the frequency of an event like this, and I don't think that's 2,500 cars. So this would magnify that, and then 60 or 70 times in a summer. So for me, that constitutes undue interference. And that's just clearing out a parking lot. That's not everything else downstream where people have to go home.
And for the applicant, I am at a loss to tell you at what level. In other words, somewhere below 5,000, what would be approvable in this commissioner's opinion. But I think that 5,000 and that traffic flow is far exceeds my comfortable level and my measurable level. And my suggestion is to work with emergency services, fire, police, ambulance, and get an agreement to what that threshold could possibly be, because I see the need for what you're wanting to do. I don't know that I have a specific opinion that it's wrong or right to put it on the parcel that you're putting it on, but I think the threshold of the 5,000 attendance feels way over bounds, and you are the management and the money behind it. I don't know if there's a threshold at 500 or 1,000 or whatever the number is. I don't know. Maybe your threshold for go, no go is at 5,000. I have no idea. My suggestion is that perhaps it could be a more feasible application at a smaller size venue. Just my personal opinion. Because when I'm sitting here trying to make the decision, somehow the one guy was very articulate and mathematical, which spoke to my brain about the spacing of cars, the distance at 55 miles an hour, and how long a string that would be of 2,500 cars of 43 miles. I haven't done the math, but he was very persuasive to me that many cars is a really long line of cars. That many cars on the railroad would be a really long line of cars. And so you put that in your brain on a highway 55, and it sort of works up to Farmway. It really doesn't work on the 2-lane roads, because I know people out in the country. I've lived there all my life. And when there's any congestion on state highway, everybody just goes like rats on a sinking ship into all the arterial roads, and they don't pay attention to the stop signs, and you get a worse problem. And so I think we need to be at a level that people are going to go to a venue like this and stay on the state highway and stay safe. And I can't see I just see them turning off on every other secondary road before they get there between the lake and the venue, and finding out that not all roads connect to Sunnyslope from the backside. And then we'll have a bigger problem. So, Zach, are you at any decision point on number 7?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And what would that maybe be?
That I find undue interference with existing or future traffic patterns.
Okay. All right. So on 8, will essential services be provided to accommodate for those including but not limited to school facilities does not apply. Police and fire protection does apply. Emergency medical services does apply. I think that the applicant made convincing arguments about the irrigation facilities. And will the services be negatively impacted by such use or require additional public funding in order to meet the needs created by the requested use? So they represented that they were willing to put in a helipad. That was great. That's a good idea. I don't see the logic in having a Kane County ambulance sit on site because they're not going to be able to respond to any of the other calls because of the congestion. And we're at such a limited number now. I don't know that I feel that that's fair to the rest of the county to do that. I think that there's possible other mitigation that could be done. To me, the other essential services are the water and the sanitary services on wastewater. I think it's been demonstrated that they would have to. This just really puts the commissioner in a stupid position. They would have to get the other agencies' approval before construction, but unfortunately, one of the things that we have to consider in this application is the water and the sewer. So are we kicking the can down the road, or are we going to consider it, or are we going to totally ignore one of the things that we have to make a determination on because DEQ and the Idaho Water say, no, we got this. We'll figure out whatever their engineering drawings are going to be that haven't been submitted yet, and we'll approve it, and we'll be sure that we get all the documentation to development services so they can say, yeah, cross that T, dotted that I, and yet we're in the loop at the very beginning. It's a paradox. And man, I know Mr. Sims. I know if he says that he'll do it, he'll do it. But it feels uncomfortable to say carte blanche. Yeah, sure, go knock yourselves out. I'm just voicing in public my frustration with part of this system. I do find that essential services, that the police and fire have both spoken, and that they are going to be unable to service the area in a method that they know will accommodate the use. I'll put it that way. They are finding themselves lacking in what level of service they would normally have, and during the high load times, they feel that they aren't going to be able to accommodate it. That has been submitted in writing. Marcin is seemingly in a different position, Marston Fire. But they have to cross through the area to get to any of the hospital services, unless they call in an air ambulance. So I find that they're in somewhat of the same predicament. So I guess I find that essential services at this point need to have a clear method to be medicated. That's not the right pronunciation. Mediated to some level that would give this commissioner a firm foundation to make a positive decision on. At this point, I have to go, I have to take a great deal of input from both the rural fire and sheriff.
I would concur with your statement. I'm glad you brought up how awkward or stupid the position feels. Appropriate or not, this is, you probably haven't seen the movie Dumb and Dumber. But Jim Carrey's standing there at the end after he's blown all the money with an IOU of $185,000. He's like, hey, you might want to hang on to that one. I kind of feel like that's what this is. We're being told like, hey, approve this, we'll go take care of this with the other entities. It's a terrible position to be in, I think, as far as something like this is concerned. And where does a contractual agreement between an entity that owns the venue and that particular property and a different piece of property concerning the water and whatnot, that they're not the same owner? I don't know if that is par for the course or if that is unique, but for me right now, that's pretty uncomfortable. I don't know that I can use that as a legal basis of decision making point for this, but I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay. Are you at a point that you need more discussion on number 8, or are you at a point that you could make come to a conclusion on?
No, I think you stated it perfectly in reference to prior testimony from police, fire, EMS, and the applicant has stated that they would put qualified EMS on site that have their own security. That works on the premises that they control. You know, outside of that is not their jurisdiction, and that's where we have to be the determinant factor in who we are in place and basically coercing them to work through an agreement. You know, if we were to approve this.
Right. Okay. Anything else?
No, I think part of that also ties into number 5. You know, we heard testimony to the water and everything that was available in the proposed discussions of what kind of treatment plan would be. But it's really hard to make a decision on a plan that you haven't seen. You know?
Right.
I don't know beyond this if we need to go into, you know, I guess maybe my differing opinions on goals, policies, and implementation with the comp plan, you know, from what was provided. I mean, I have numerous ones here that I take issue with, but as far as the hearing criteria, I think if we needed to save ourselves the trouble. We don't need to get into that, but I could go through the comp plan as well.
Okay. It's entirely your decision. For this commissioner, the denial was over the 3 points, and I needed to see if they were persuasive to convince this commissioner that they've overcome those 3 points of concern. And I've not been convinced. I think to go into any of the other points that the P&Z handled it for me, some of those points were brought up in public testimony, but for me, I would feel more comfortable to stay with what the denial was about and seeing if they could overcome that.
Okay.
And you're welcome to bring up any other thing. I'm not saying that you can't.
I will defer to your experience and wisdom in that.
Wisdom is questionable. All right. Are you to the point that you want to make a decision?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So I will do this as a discussion point, not as a motion. But theoretically, I would consider making a motion to deny the appeal and uphold the Planning and Zoning Commission's denial of the conditional use permit, and have legal work with us to write out the findings and facts and conclusions of law, and have a meeting someday future within probably the next 2 weeks to meet and approve those findings and facts and conclusions of law. Do you see an issue with that?
Chairman, no, that seems appropriate, and I'd be happy to work with your staff and to revise the findings based, to add in the evidence we've heard over the last day and a half of hearing. On timing, I am going to be out of the office, so if we could maybe lean towards 3 weeks instead of 2, I would appreciate that.
Does the applicant have any issues with 3 weeks out? Are you available 3 weeks out? Is that okay?
I'm not gonna be here.
Right. No concerns. Okay.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, just because we do have an audience and for the record, either yourself or Zach, would just clarify that the final decision is today, and then what the SCOs are and aren't in terms of public hearing and process. So I don't know if you want Zach to do that, or would like to. It just, not everybody's familiar with that kind of that insider term, if you don't mind.
Very good point. Zach, would you please delineate that for the audience?
Yes, Chairman. The Local Land Use Planning Act requires that the final decision of the board be written with an explanation of the criteria that you use and the findings that you've made. And so, as a regular part of our process, you've got draft findings in your record that your staff prepares. But because you've had all of this testimony yesterday and today, those will need to be modified or updated with the evidence that's been provided, and then to reflect your decision. And so a draft will be prepared based on your oral decision that you've made today, a written record of that that will be the final appealable decision of the board. And so that's there's no additional public comment. It's just a formal closing of the process.
You have any thoughts or discussion? Yeah.
Through the chair, I just okay. Through the chair, one of the things that the planning and zoning decision came with was section 67, 65, 19, which if there is ways to approve the application, what would those steps be to get approval? The Planning and Zoning Commission, Exhibit 4, page 505, states that One, that they have to provide adequate plans, noise study, exterior lighting study, and improvements that will minimize potential impacts to the area, which includes reduce the scale of the amphitheater to fit the character of the area. And then the second bullet was coordinate with the local agencies, which says Marston Fire, Boise Project Border Patrol, Canyon County Sheriff, Canyon Highway District, Idaho Transportation Department, etc., to ensure adequate services and infrastructure will and can be provided, including fair share into future infrastructure improvements. Is this something the board would want to keep or would want to add on to?
Mr. Chairman, I'm at a loss for giving any direction as far as how this particular application in this location could be improved. I mean, bottom line, I think that's what it comes down to. That's why I referred back to some of the neutral testimony and even the opposition stating they like the idea, the location they don't. And if this were to be inside city limits connected to city services or any impact area with services, this is a totally different conversation. But where it's at, I don't know how to get to a point where I say, okay, make this X size, and then I can go along with it.
Dan?
Hey, you could agree with, since this is being overturned, or not overturned, but upheld, you can disagree with planning and zoning's recommended ways to obtain approval. You could strike it because state law says if there's ways, then you're supposed to list it out. Or you can come up with your own. Since this is a de novo hearing, you can create your own approval list or ways to obtain approval.
Okay. You know, in part and parcel, I think what was read is still on track. Could you reread the portion about the sound that talked about the lighting?
Yeah, so the first bullet of their actions to may be taken to obtain approval says, provide adequate plans, noise study, exterior lighting study, and improvements that will minimize potential impacts to the area.
Okay. All right. Now I'm comfortable with that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, as part of your discussion related to the requirement of state law to list that, you also spoke about the corridor and the timing of the corridor improvements on Highway 55, as well as the connection to services. So because we do have to put that into your findings, if there's anything specifically you would like to reference in that, since that was not discussed as part of these P&Zs, I think that's the input that staff is looking for to make sure the document can follow state law. And those were the two areas that you generally discussed, but going back to what Dan's saying, if there's anything specific you want to add for us.
It's been my experience in the past that when legal is making the basis for those findings, they go and they make succinct what I've said. And so I think what I've said can be taken from legal staff and made succinct in a writing. And I don't think that I feel comfortable to be the author of those perfect words at this point. And I trust legal to take what I've said and my intentions of offering options to the applicant from what I've said already. Okay. All right. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we deny the appeal and uphold the Planning and Zoning Commission's denial of the conditional use permit.
You want to do this in a two-stage motion because we're going to have to make we're going to have to be within this meeting to also have the findings of facts and conclusions of law as part of our decision. So you want that the first part of our decision?
Sure.
Okay. I would second that under that it's the first part of our decision. Motion's been made and I seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, I make a motion then that we direct legal staff to, within the next 3 to 4 weeks, make a written findings, facts, and conclusions of law about this decision, and to have them before the commission so we can review those and then accept them legally as part of the record.
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right, thank you. All right, is there any other business that we need to take care of for this?
Mr. Chairman, motion to adjourn.
I would second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, stand adjourned.